Singapore's job market has turned the corner, but risk factors remain. That is the verdict from Manpower Minister Josephine Teo, who presented the latest labour market report today.
Well, for the full year in 2020, total employment contracted by 166,600, excluding foreign domestic workers. This was the sharpest fall in over 2 decades. Non-residents accounted for all of the decline.
But as the shock from the pandemic subsided, unemployment rates have fallen since November and have continued to fall. Retrenchment numbers have declined and resident employment has picked up.
Let's get some insight behind the figures from Executive Director of the Singapore National Employers Federation, Sim Kim Guan. Welcome to the show. So, non-residents accounted for all of the employment decline in 2020. Kim Guan, what does this show you? Is it a case of, when times are bad, is the focus on keeping locals in their jobs?
I suppose you can look at it from the perspective that many of the sectors that were quite severely affected are also the sectors that hire a lot of foreigners. And so it's not surprising that a lot of the non-residents are the ones that lose their job. So that's one. Second, if you look at the slew of government measures and support that have been extended over the course of this year, a large part of it is designed towards supporting locals. If you look at the job growth incentive, for example. Consequently, it is not surprising to also see that there was an uptick in the resident employment. And third, if you also recognize that this is a global pandemic, many of the control measures with regards to border closures are still very much in place. It is not so easy for employers to firstly hire foreigners, that's one. But at the same time, from a more manpower strategy perspective, it also makes sense for employers to hire local because the locals are not the ones that are subject to as much constraints as non-residents. So it is therefore not surprising to see the statistic showing up as it did, which with the majority of the unemployment being absorbed by non-residents.
Right. Kim Guan, another aspect of the report is that older residents in their 50s and younger workers aged below 30 were also more likely to be retrenched compared with those in other age groups. Does this come as a surprise? Because I assume that those in their 30s and 40s will be more vulnerable to retrenchment because, they cost more but have less experience.
For this, I think you can look at it from two perspectives. One is that the older, more mature workers, sometimes one of the challenge is that they may not have kept their skills updated. And consequently, even as companies are looking at transformation, they might find that the skills are less relevant. And so that might result in the more mature workers being a little bit more vulnerable. So one of the things that we have been pushing for is to look at how we can better support mature workers to upskill and to reskill so that they can better support companies. So that's one. Secondly, actually when companies look at retrenchment, it is very much a case of looking at how the employees can support the business. Over the course of last year, I think under the National Wage Council, one of the proposal suggestion guideline has been for companies to look at, as far as possible, retaining their workers. And I believe that most employers have done so. So when they retrench, it is very much a last resort, and they will be looking at keeping workers that can continue to support the business. For the younger workers, therefore, I think one of the things is the kind of occupations that many of the young workers are in, which is clerical, sales and service workers. And you find that for the sectors that were most affected, these were also the jobs that were mostly found and commonly found in these industries, such as retail and food services. So it was not surprising that a lot of the younger workers were affected. But of course, the good thing is that they were also able to quickly find a job even after they have been retrenched.
Well, let's look ahead now. Coming out of the sharpest decline in more than 2 decades, Kim Guan, what's your employment outlook for 2021?
First, I think we need to note that for the year 2020, GDP had contracted by about 5.4%. For the year 2021, the projection now is that the GDP will grow by more than 5%. So in a way, we are going back to somewhere near to the 2019 level or maybe slightly better. So from the macro perspective, things are looking better. But at the same time, there's still quite a fair bit of uncertainty. Some of the industries that have been badly affected continues to face challenges. So that's one. Secondly, if you look at many of the government schemes, they are also tapering. So the schemes that were put in place, such as the job support scheme, had supported employers in a very significant manner over the course of 2020. And with the tapering of this support, there would be some challenges that employers will have to face. But we're also hopeful that with the vaccination coming into effect for not just Singapore, but the rest of the world, we will be able to start to open our borders. And with that, economy will start to improve.
Well, thank you so much for setting aside time to join us, Kim Guan. We've been speaking with Sim Kim Guan, Executive Director at the Singapore National Employers Federation.